This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Regina League.
Welcome, everybody, to the Good Neighbor Podcast here in South Charlotte. And I'd love to introduce today's topic is Musicians in Motion. It's a business owned by David Lebel. Welcome, David. How are you?
Good, Regina. How are you?
Good. I know you have two locations and you do in-home and studio music lessons, and you've got a location on Carmel Road and one in Waxhaw. So happy to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I love to start out and just hear a little bit about your journey. What brought you to this industry, and then what made you start your own business?
Well, I started playing the violin when I was 6 years old, and I was really into it, and I enjoyed it and was good at it, and took lessons, all through high school and college. Went to college for music, so got a music degree, and then when I left college, I ended up in a position where I could teach at a local church, and it just kind of went from there. I decided to try and do some advertising, get some teachers, and we started doing in-home lessons, just offering that. And it was kind of low risk because I wasn't renting studio space, and it was kind of like, let's just see what happens with this. And then maybe about a year and a half into it, I had a lot of people that were wanting to go somewhere and not just didn't really want anybody to come to their home. It's too chaotic or whatever. They wanted to get out and go somewhere. So I looked into it and ended up renting a small space with a few rooms. And then we grew from there. So I have that South Charlotte location, and we have 5 rooms and a waiting area. So still at that location, and then ended up expanding into Waxhaw about 7 years ago, and built out a space there to that growing area.
Well, I know you guys do a lot of instruments. So I'm looking at your website. What are some of the ones the most popular?
So piano is the most popular, and we have lots of group piano classes to accommodate that. And we're big on guitar, and quite a few violin students, and voice is very popular. We are pretty full right now on voice, but we get calls all the time for voice lessons.
So are your students also like in the school band? Who is the right person to come to you?
Yeah, I mean, we love it when students are in a group or going to join a group in school, because those are the students that will ideally they'll practice, and they're really into it. So they're not just practicing, they're not just behind closed doors practicing their instrument. They're actually doing something with it. So they usually do really well.
And I see you do drums, violin, of course, ukulele. That's quite unusual.
Yeah, ukuleles. It's become popular. We have about 10 or 15 ukulele students. It's not obviously our biggest instrument, but people do like it. It's a fun instrument.
So you've been doing this a long time, over 16 years. I think it's amazing. What age students do you work with?
So we have classes for as young as 3. We have a 3 to 5 class called Music Fun Time. And then we teach adults too. We've had adults into their senior years that are taking lessons, something they wanted to do their whole life. And so they retire and they say, I always wanted to take piano lessons, and they do. So yeah, we teach all ages, 3 and up.
So they can come to you with zero experience, don't know how to read music, know nothing. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's pretty amazing. I bet you guys get some good giggles.
Yes.
Do you ever just think, oh my goodness, I don't know if this is going to happen for this person?
It's usually yes, but it's usually in relation to them not putting enough time into it. So a lot of students, they don't practice enough, and it doesn't matter how much talent you have. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't practice, you're not going to make any progress.
Well, I would guess that's probably one of the misconceptions is they can just come and show up for class. How often do you recommend coming to class?
So we typically do weekly lessons. So you come once a week for a 30, 45, or 60-minute lesson. We recommend the once a week because you need that consistency. So if you come every other week or once a month, then a lot of times the students will not practice until like a couple of days before their lesson. And by then they've already forgotten everything that was taught in the lesson. It's been, almost 2 weeks. And so having that weekly lesson, it kind of pushes them to practice and keep on top of it.
Yeah. And if you were to say, honestly, what kind of commitment it takes outside of lessons to progress, what would you suggest as far as practice?
Well, I often compare learning an instrument to learning another language. So if you don't speak French and you're like, okay, I'm going to become fluent in French. Well, how long is that going to take? Well, years. Daily practice. Constantly reviewing vocabulary, learning new grammar, all that kind of stuff. It's a long and tedious process, and that's what you're doing with music is you're learning a language. So I usually tell my students they should be practicing 1 minute for every minute of lesson times 5 days. So for instance, if you do a 30-minute lesson, you should be doing 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's the ideal. Now, that doesn't always happen, but the students that do that or more, or practice 6 days a week or whatever, or more than 30 minutes, they're going to make tremendous progress. So that's what I usually recommend.
So it just dawned on me, let's say you want to take piano lessons, but you don't have a piano at home. Does that kind of make it not possible?
No. So we have rental instruments. We offer, we do have rental keyboards, and we also recommend what to purchase. So we can tell somebody even what to search for on Facebook Marketplace, what to look for, so you can get an inexpensive used piano.
Do people ever come in thinking, I want to play this, but you find that they're maybe better suited for something else?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with misconceptions about how easy an instrument might be to learn. For instance, the violin, string instruments are really hard, maybe the hardest instruments to learn. And so somebody might see a violinist or hear a violin and say, I really want to learn that. It's beautiful. And then they get into it and they realize it's extremely difficult. And so then we often will say, well, why don't you try the piano and see if you like that, how you like that. And they always pick the piano over the violin because it's so much easier. Or students who are trying to decide between a few instruments and they're trying the violin and maybe a couple other instruments, they almost never pick the violin because it's so much harder than the other instruments. You sit down at the piano, and even if you just play with one finger, you can plunk out a song, and it's in tune. But on the violin, you might have to have 2 lessons or 3 lessons before you can even start learning a song.
Wow. A lot of frustration, I'm sure there. Yeah, I think of my years practicing clarinet at home as a kid, and it wasn't pretty for my family. And I didn't end up sticking with it. On your website, you have something that really strikes me. It's a class called Rock Band for Beginners, ages 6 to 10. What is that?
That is a really cool class. So it's we call it Kids Rock, and it's the kids are coming in and they get to rotate on keyboard, drums, and guitar, and they don't have to have any experience. They just come in and play, and the curriculum is easy enough that they can pick it up very quickly. And so they'll do that for maybe 4 to 6 months and then switch to private lessons. But it's a great way to just sort of develop a love for music and playing with other kids, rather than, let's say you come in and you take drum lessons. Well, unless you're in a band, you're just playing by yourself, and there's almost no purpose to it in the moment. So you, at least with this, you get to make music with other people immediately. So there's sort of that immediate gratification, and the kids love seeing each other every week. They're like their band friends or whatever. And so there's that sort of social element that's missing if they just jump into private lessons.
Oh, yeah. Do you guys do recitals?
We do. Yep. Twice a year. We do recitals around Christmas. We have a lot. We do recitals at our Waxhaw location. We have a small room that holds about 60 people. So we can't do like a huge company recital, but we have the teachers will individually do their own like little mini recitals. So they'll be maybe 30 minutes or something, which the parents love. We used to do these huge recitals that were like 2-3 hours, and parents just hated them. So they really like these little mini recitals that are like 30 minutes.
I bet that is hysterical to watch those kids getting into it. So let's say you're outside of that age. What kind of group lesson situations do you offer?
So for the younger ones, for the 3 to 5 age, we have Music Fun Time, which is like a fun music theory class that's designed to be engaging at that age, with arts and crafts and singing and noisemakers and all kinds of stuff to learn the basics, the rhythm, and to actually they learn to read music, throughout that. It's about a 1.5-year course that they would go through. And then at that point they could switch to, private piano or whatever, or group classes. We do offer group piano for ages 6 to 14. And then above that or outside of that, we really don't have any group classes. I'm looking to start some things, but we don't have anything official yet outside of those group classes.
I love the idea of, the senior thinking, okay, I want to learn to play an instrument. I've thought about it my whole life. Well, tell our listeners how to find you and how to learn more about music in motion.
Sure. Well, our phone number is 704-315-5261. You can call or text us anytime, day or night. And if we don't answer, we'll call you back as soon as we can. We also have an email address, info@musiciansinmotion.com.
Well, I love what you do. I've stopped in before, and it's got to be enjoying to see your students learn and excel. And, you said earlier you have some that go on like yourself to go to school and major in music and do something with it for the rest of their lives. So that's an amazing talent to have. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on our show today.
Thanks for having me, Regina.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpsouthcharlotte.com. That's gnpsouthcharlotte.com or call 980-351-5719.